Hello, everybody. So you sat there, and before sitting, you found a dark gray piece of paper. It's something I kindly ask you to fill or to use at the end of this speech. I'm very curious to know your opinion about the work and what you see as a possible future development of the project we are exhibiting on the other side of this wall. So I'm here today to speak about Geomerce, which is a project that I developed with another designer. We are both Italians, although we studied together in the Netherlands. And actually, before starting to speak about the work, I would like to give you a short introduction about what we do and who we are. So I'm the one with the hair, and Giovanni is the one with the beard. We are, as I said, we are both Italians, and we both studied in Eindhoven at the Design Academy. And actually, we are quite different, even though we share a very similar background. We both studied industrial design in Italy, myself in Venice, Giovanni in Turin. And then we met in Eindhoven. So the main interest of Giovanni is related to the concept of value. He really likes to investigate what value is, especially in design. And I choose a project from him to describe the way he works. The project is called The Money Changer, and it's an installation that was commissioned by the Maxi, the Museum of Contemporary Art in Rome, in Italy, last year. It's a project he developed with Tal Drori, an Israeli colleague of Giovanni. And for this exhibition, we were asked to design something that could represent the value of studying abroad. So what is the value? How is the experience of being in a foreign country and studying design in another context? This is a short video that illustrates the project. Bit of patience, bit of suspense. A little bit more. A bit more. There you go. So the installation consists, as you see, mainly of a regular inkjet printer. And visitors can use the printer to print on their own banknotes. Obviously, the question that this installation wants to raise is how much is design education worth of? So after you get your money changed in this kind of new currency, you can actually question where you can spend this money and how valuable is it? Is it worth nothing? Is it invaluable because it's a piece of art? Is the value as the same as the initial one? So, yeah. So the illustrations borrow the aesthetic of Tal, this Israeli designer, and they talk about passing on the other side to experience what's there. So they use the senses as metaphors. So this is Tal sticking her nose to get a smell of what Italy is. This is Giovanni trying to meditate in the Netherlands. This is Tal getting a taste of Italy. Giovanni hearing the sounds of the Netherlands. So banknotes are metaphors. They are metaphors that narrate what is the value of the experience. How much are these banknotes worth of? They don't know, probably. They still don't know, probably. So my interest instead relies on the narrative interface of object. I'm very interested on how objects communicate and what they communicate. So one of the projects I want to present is actually a project we have here on the side. It's a project that is part of the transnatural collection. It's called Trap Light, and it's a project that I designed with Mike Thompson. It's a work that mediates the potential of photoluminescence as an energy-saving material. So what we did is we experimented with a mineral that comes from the earth. It's a strontium aluminate, and we tried to adapt the potential of the material to a traditional glass blowing technique that comes from Venice. So the result of this experimentation was a collection of lamps. You can really see them on the side. So these lamps, they actually recycle energy. So we kind of tried to add this mineral to the glass while it was blown. And we use this technique called incamiciatura. So we trap the pigment into 2 layers of glass. So the idea was really to create a lamp that would recycle its own light. So this is the kind of effect overnight. So you keep the lights on for like the evening hours, but when you switch the light off, the glass is charged and keeps glowing for a certain amount of hours. So it's a project that talks about energy and how an alternative approach to natural resources can support behavioral change somehow. So this is another work that I'm currently developing with Alessia Cadamuro, another designer, and it investigates the potential of a cooking tool that uses the thermal performances of molten mineral salts. So we actually started from this concept that was developed in the States, and they are energy collectors which contain minerals that melt over 180 degrees, more or less. So once the sun melts them down and they get to a liquid state, in order to return to a solid state, they emit energy in the form of heat. So what we came up with is a sort of cooking tool. It's a stove that stores the energy of the sun and allows for a cooking time of 24 hours, more or less. So they are basically 2 bells made out of copper, and you can cook when the sun is heating the object, but you can also cook after the sun is gone down. So it's a kind of interesting experiment to see the potential of these minerals, basically. But today we are here. I'm here to talk to you about Geomerce, the project we have also on the other side of the wall. And it's a project which is at the intersection between plant sciences, ecology, and speculative design. And this work actually starts from a kind of scientific fact. And the fact is that plants absorb metal from the ground. So certain plants are particularly good at absorbing specific metals, certain type of metals. So researchers are kind of trying to understand of the reasons why plants are absorbing metals like nickel, silver, gold from the soil. And it's a form of defense from herbivores. So when the plant accumulate the metal, the predators don't eat the plant anymore. So what you see on the right is actually a kind of newly discovered plant species growing in New Caledonia. So the sap there is green because it contains up to 40% in nickel inside. So these plants are really like a sort of Ferrari of metal uptake. So what you see here is a leaf of an eucalyptus tree, which is growing on land contaminated by gold. So what you see in yellow is actually gold particles that are deposited on the leaf tissues of the tree. The process of uptaking the metal, by the way, is called phytomining, and you can collect the metal back once you burn the biomass. So by taking out the leaves and part of the trunks, you can burn that, and the metal is collected then. The whole process is called phytomining. So there is actually a big problem in this in Europe, which is the fact that there are more than a million sites which are currently contaminated with the heavy metals. So the problem is that food producers use some of these lands to cultivate food, and the food that grows in this land is totally unsafe. So actually, instead of looking at the problem itself, we look at the opportunities. So the value that the plants collect over time by picking up metal from the soil. So we wanted to kind of represent this value using plants. So what we notice is that this value, that the metal, so the metal the plant takes over time, has also a value in the international market. So every day there is a market of metal called London Metal Exchange. So what this market of metal does is quoting in real time the value of specific metals. So this was a kind of starting point for the project. So we started with a question, and the question was, what if we had to reimagine an alternative form of agriculture that associate plant with speculative future economies? So in Geomerce, crops are not anymore an agricultural matter, but they become financial assets. And this asset constantly changes over time. So I have a short video to show you that describes the project that we have here.
For a long time, a factory has occupied this land. This factory produced parts for the motor, electronic and clothing industry. The factory didn't survive the crisis and closed, leaving behind a land contaminated by heavy metals. People appropriated this land. Not aware of the past, they started growing vegetables. But the products of these fields weren't safe and couldn't be consumed or traded. The farmer realized that the metals in the soil represent a capital, a resource to exploit. Plants can extract those metals. From the roots, metals travel all the way to the leaves. Leaves can be harvested, burned, and the metals are so collected. This process is called phytomining. So the old technique of crop rotation was still used, but according to other criteria. At times, farmers followed the trends from finance. Using hyperaccumulators, extracting over 200 kilograms of heavy metals per hectare every year. Crossing breeds to create species with higher biomass and metal intake, resulting in new hyperaccumulators for precious metals. Slowly we could move from a farm of metals to a wood of metals, or even a forest.
This video actually represent all the informations that are behind the project somehow. So actually the plants that accumulate metals are many, and they are all different. The phenotype is different. The type of metal that they pick up is different. So we created this kind of graphics to represent what grows on which kind of contamination somehow. So this is, these are two plants collecting zinc, for instance. This is a plant collecting silver, and it's called Brassica juncea. And the other on the right is also collecting zinc, and it's a very good performer, basically. So for this event here in Düsseldorf, we did something quite interesting, because we selected a site which is in Bestwig, a land 100 kilometers away from Düsseldorf, close to Winterberg. And this land, actually, our research started from here somehow. So this land is a former site, it's a former mine. So they used to extract zinc from this place. There is actually, we kind of collected the old maps from the 1950 of the land. And this is how the map from the top, the mine used to look like. This is a really like a 1945 picture that represent how the mine was structured. So what we did was, going back to this picture, was we visited the site and we collected the biggest plant species growing, the biggest plant species of hyperaccumulators growing on the land there. So, this is how the site looks like a bit. And those plants were growing on the side of this mountain and on this land that is now actually a bit empty, of course. And this is how the plant used to look like. So we did quite some research to understand what species we could use for this work. And we selected the plant and we did some laboratory tests. So we noticed that the plant that is seen on the left and the plant on the right is the same species, but they are both growing on two different type of soil. The soil on the right is a soil which is contaminated with nickel. So actually, the plant did not only survive with the metal, but it also grew bigger somehow. So it clearly likes the presence of metal. So we work with a Swiss company to kind of understand how to detect the process of metal uptake of these plants. And this Swiss company that was supposed to be here today, they couldn't come actually, they developed this kind of sensing technology for the project. So by having actually plants, those plants that we collect from the site with the roots in water with metal, we could sense in real time how much value, how much metal the plant was uptaking. So every 2 minutes we were inquiring these two electrodes that you see there and asking how less metal there was in the water and therefore how much metal the plant picked up. So we came up with this kind of extraction unit. This unit combines a sort of hydroponic system with the sensors, the technology you've seen on the previous photo. So then we have also a brain, a central part that combines the information from the extraction unit with the data from the London Metal Exchange, the data of the value of the metal in the market. So what resulted from this kind of compenetration of parts is a real-time value of the plant in relation to the financial market of metal. So on the side here we have also a plotter, and the plotters are the part that we designed to produce a graphic artifact that mediates the scenario you've seen on the video before. So they are sort of generators of debate. What is the value of the plant that we explored according to the plants we collected there? So the reason why the plotter is circular is that it resembles the idea of a clock. So the machine starts up at 9 in the morning when the market of metal starts and stops at 6 in the evening when the market of metal stops. So every day there is a graph that comes out of these machines and they represent the value, in this case, of this mine, this old mine that is located in Bestvig. So what you see there, the lines, the vertical lines are actually every 2 minutes how much metal the plant took over in the course of these 2 minutes. So if you see here, so this is a full 9-hour cycle. So the difference between this part and this part, this is day 3 of the installation, and this is the total amount of metal that was contained in the water. The difference between this part and this part is how much metal the plant took over 1 day. So basically, a fourth of the whole metal dissolved in the water was taken up by the plant. And what you see here is actually the value, the real-time value of the metal in the market. So growing on the land. So we're kind of reimagining a sort of future form of agriculture that really blurs with finance to rethink actually what plants are worth of somehow. So there is actually another part, which is the last, that we have exhibited here. And this part actually displays where the plant accumulates the metal. So actually we worked with a chemical procedure, a laboratory procedure that actually clears the leaf, maintaining intact all the vascular bundle of the plant. So what you see on the right is actually a photo of a leaf of those plants, and the red part is actually fully saturated with zinc in this case. So at the end of this chemical procedure, we designed these kind of lenses that are a representation, actually a visualization of the deposition of the metal on the tissues. So those lenses are kind of representational object. They objectify what is invisible, which is actually the capillary system of the leaf. So to give you an example, the leaf, now you don't see it very well, but the leaf on the left and the leaf on the right are the same, are coming from the same plant, but the leaf on the right is fully matte, fully opaque. And what is opaque is because of zinc concentration. So those pieces are actually what we are now working on for a museum to actually give you visualization of the potential of these hyperaccumulators. So where the metal is deposited and how much there is in the tissues. Again, here it's zinc and the accumulation of zinc on the leaf capillary system. So to conclude, actually, what I wanted to say is that science and technology in this project kind of crossed over. However, plants remain central. And the plants are actually, the way I see it is that the plants are part of our technology themselves. They are part of the technology. So we approach the relation between plants and technology by focusing on two key aspects. The first is the temporal divergence there are between plants and humans. As humans, our perception of time is totally different from what is for other species. And that's why we kind of created this kind of technology that detects the real-time performance of the plant. We wanted to visualize what is the value that plants accumulate over time by bridging these time divergences. So another example that I took is a clock. It's another example of how plants represent time. And it's a flower clock. It was made by Carl Linnaeus, which he was a botanist living in the 16th century. And this clock was designed to open and close through the flowers during different times of the day, and making it perceivable for humans to get a taste of how time is handled in plants. So this is how it works, actually. You have, it's a very big piece, and the species are planted in different hours, and the flowers open and close at different times of the day. So it was a representation of how plants represent time somehow. And the other aspect that we focus on was the aspect of environment. So we really focus on the environment surrounding a plant to design Geomerce. Actually, plants are totally responsive to the environment that they have around. So when there are parasites, for instance, like in the case of our plants, they act to protect from the parasites. So in our case, the plants accumulate the metal to protect from the herbivores. So you don't see it here, but what they do is they also emit chemical signals every time they are under attack. And this is done by chemical messages released by the leaf of the plant. At the same time, the plant is also releasing a kind of electrical signal which is below soil. So it's a form of defense the plants use to react to the environment. So a few days ago, I was at the Ruhr University here in Germany, and I spoke with the head of the lab of plant physiology. Over there, they have a collection of about 200 different plant species that collect different types of metals. And it was funny because she could name each species one by one. Like she was saying, this is the Italian species, this is the Austrian one, this is the German one. It was interesting because I realized that actually knowing the environment where we live together with plants is actually fundamental. And I realized that the vegetal world has a lot to say about this relation between plants and humans. Plants actually witness our presence, the human presence on the land, and they display a lot of behaviors that could potentially become very useful to reimagine a future of collaboration between different species. So this is what I wanted to talk about today with you. And so I thank you for your kind attention. And as I said, when you sat here, you found this great piece of paper. I'm collecting some information about you and about what you knew about this plant species. And this is actually kind of useful for my research, which is not only about plant species, the relation between plants and humans, but also it's a lot about researching into public engagement with land and yeah. So I would be very happy if you could reap the part of the answer that represent you and your thoughts. Thank you very much. You can leave the paper on the chairs, if you like. Yeah, you reap what your answer is, and you can repeat it completely or just repeat a little bit, whatever. It doesn't really matter. So, if you have any questions, I think we have like maybe 5-10 minutes to discuss a few things together, if you like. So I was curious to know if you knew about this kind of plant behaviors and what you see as a potential good development of this work. Because at the moment we are in our design studio, we are working a lot with these laboratories of plant sciences, and we are kind of looking at developing a sort of monitoring technology for the future to really create a database almost of the biodiversity that there is in Europe in response to human presence. So I was curious to get a bit of feedback from you about what I just presented, and yeah, if you have any questions or. Sorry?
Where is the gold?
Yeah, you mean?
You have some zinc here, or some nickel, or can we see what the plants actually take? Do you have the result of the mining?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have that here as well?
Well, the project itself doesn't focus on extraction. The project itself focuses on displaying and communicating the behavior of the plants somehow. The part of phytomining is a part which is normally followed by engineers we work with, and they more follow up the, let's say, sustainability part, so how to make the whole process of extraction sustainable. Because of course you cannot only extract the metal, there are a few things that need to be evaluated, or at least taken into consideration. So the metal needs to have enough value in the market to be able to be extracted. And while you extract the metal, so you burn the biomass, and you need to extract energy by burning the biomass. So finally, a sum of different things needs to make sense to make the process sustainable, let's say, or financially, and from an energetic point of view, sustainable as well. So for us here, I think the interesting part was really to look into the technology, so how plants do this and why they do it. And also, this idea of representing the value of plants in real time is something we thought kind of unique, because normally in the laboratory what they do is they have a solution of water with metal inside, and they collect samples of the leaf every like 3-4 hours, and they put the leaves under the microscopy to see where the metal deposit. So this technology allows for a real-time detection of the metal uptake process. So we were kind of focusing more on that side, let's say, and it kind of helps to reimagine what the value of this agricultural practice in the future could be.
But is it feasible to you that in the future we would be mining?
Yeah, totally, yeah. So the idea is really that this work is a sort of starting point to reimagine how this practice could look like. So who's going to be involved? What is this sort of? You almost create this sort of profile of the metal farmer, you know. So it's a farmer that does not grow any more food, but grows metal through plants, basically, kind of. The idea was really to discuss or to have a few feedback about this future scenario. How do you see it, and do you see a potential in there somehow? Thank you. Yeah.
What I got to know several.
Can you raise the?
I knew different types of research for phytomining.
Yeah.
Do you say phytomining? But what was new for me is the aspect of value and the concept of value, and to think about to combine this. And I think this is really very consequently zu Ende gedacht. Was sagt man? Zu Ende gedacht? And I think this is, and the presentation and the video, the visualization of this idea was very good, very excellent. Compliments.
Thank you.
And I think this is a good idea to think about. I know several areas, and I think the Dutch people have several areas where they do the research on phytomining from, how do you say,
contamination,
spaces,
yeah.
But to combine with the concept of value, I think that was new to me. And this is very, very interesting.
Thank you. Were you aware of this land in Bestvig, the one I picked up before? Because apparently there are a lot of places in Germany, but all over Europe, like especially North Rhine-Westphalia, there are a lot of sites which are kind of critical in the sense of pollution. And in Italy there are many as well, especially in the south, or in the areas where there are criminal organizations that tend to pollute the land, you know, or even like industry that operates in the automotive field or in the metallic field. So there is actually there are not European regulations that oblige companies to clean the land once they leave. So what we are left with basically is a lot of lots, pieces of land that are incredibly polluted, and it's kind of interesting to look at what the value of this pollution is. So what can you do with it, and which kind of future scenarios can this open? So I think this installation we did here, it was a sort of special thing because we really spent a lot of time into the site, into trying to collect plants that they were growing there, and they are actually in the extraction units that we have on the site here now. So we're kind of performing this in real time at this moment. So if you like to, we can have a look together at the work and discuss that there, perhaps. Yeah. Any more questions or? Okay. Thank you. Thanks a lot.